Seven Spoon. Some of you know me as Shauna. Some of you know me as Spoon. Some of me know you as that lady that ran that Dungeons and Doggos game I was in that one time. Welcome. We've changed up some of my technical settings. So Lutha's made my camera closer and he's made my microphone work better. So hopefully you should be able to see me and hear me a little bit better. Cool. You are here today joining me because I would like to talk through what I do when I run a Dungeons and Doggos one shot. Sorry, my husband just texted me, even though he knows I started the stream. But it was about the puppy, so it's allowed, of course. Sorry, so I've been running these one shots every week, sometimes multiple times a week, ever since the quarantine started. And I gradually picked up like a system I use to orient my players, because most often I'm playing with people I've never played with before, and even also very often I'm playing with brand new players. And so a lot of people have been like, well, I've never played D&D before, what would I even do? And I'm like, you should come play with me and I will give you your first taste of Dungeons and Dragons in the most adorable way possible, where you play a cute fluffy puppy dog. And enough people have said, yeah, I'm in, that they've joined. Oh, hey, Wordman. And oh, hey, TechSoup. And so I've run 6 different one-shots so far. I've had a mix of different players. I've had very experienced Dungeons and Dragons players, and I've had brand new Dungeons and Dragons players. And every single session has been a very good time, and I have really enjoyed them. So the reason I have set up a structure for how I get everybody started with the game has a couple of different facets to it. So I'm on the autism spectrum, and I'm awesome. No big deal. And so structure is very helpful for me, and it helps me transition into a space. And so it's not enough for me to sit down in front of my computer and turn everything on and be like, okay, we're going to do this. I need a little bit more. And so part of it is sitting down and having to turn each of the little pieces on in each little order, because technology is stupid and that's what you have to do. But part of it as well is interacting with the humans. And so I wrote a script based on most of the information I've gone over in the past, and I'm going to share it with you guys today. Feel free to ask questions. I'll answer as best I can. And feel free to, I don't know, say hi, I guess. Please don't be a butt, because I just don't have the spoons to deal with butts today, so no butts allowed. All right, so before I start a one-shot, oh, hi, not Luthera. Before I start a one-shot, I ask people if they'd like to join. You've probably seen me on Twitter at like 7spoon. Butts. You've probably seen me on Twitter being like, hey, y'all, need another doggo. I've also asked people in person. I just started a new job, and one of my new coworkers was like, I've never played Dungeons and Dragons, and I was like, come on over. What I ask from my players before they get into the session with me is that they have a Discord account, a Dungeons and a D&D Beyond account, and a web captioners account. I should probably pause and say, this is how I do it. This is not the right way to do it. I don't think there is a 100% the right way to do it. This is just how I do it. So just keep that in mind. The reason I ask for Discord is because that's how we do comms and I share my maps. The reason I ask for D&D Beyond is because that's where the character sheets are. And the reason I ask for web captions is because I have decided if I'm going to stream anything to the internet, it's going to have web captions. The end. It's useful for more than just the deaf community. I use web captions a heck of a lot. I don't think there is a solid web caption option. Web captioner is pretty good, but you'll notice it says some funny things sometimes, which is just the nature of the technology. I believe the more people that use it, the better it'll get. That's an opinion that I have. Hi, Spielman. Good to see you today. You had a lot of questions last time we played, so feel free to toss those in here. Okay, so I've gotten a group of 4 players. I usually use 4 players because that just makes it easier for balance reasons. It's a good introduction for pacing and to get everything done in 4 hours, which is my goal. So it's the start of the session. I have 4 players. They're all in the Discord voice channel that I have set up, that they've joined via a join link from Discord that I have sent them. They've ideally each logged into D&D Beyond and claimed a character sheet, and I have jumped in and been like, hey y'all, let's do this. And so what I first try to do is introduce myself. Usually most of the people in there know me somehow, but sometimes they don't. The last session I played, I knew one player, and she brought the other 3 players, who were all delightful, by the way. So I'll introduce myself and I'll say, hey, I'm Shauna or Spoon. Thanks for joining me today. I've been playing RPGs for about a decade. I've been playing D&D for the last year. I run 2 campaigns on a weekly basis, and I'm a player in 2 other campaigns that alternate weeks, and I run regular one-shots, both streamed and unstreamed. The reason I like to give this information is it gives people some good basic background without having to go into too much detail. Sometimes, depending on the group, I'll explain that I'm autistic. I usually do that if I've had a bit of a rough day and I know I'm going to have trouble with language. But setting those expectations right at the beginning around, I'm going to take care of you because I have this much experience, can be helpful. I also like it when my players share how much experience they've had, because I'm going to approach an experienced player differently than I approach a new player, because I like to make sure that new players of any abilities really feel comfortable asking those kinds of questions. So we've done the introductions. This is where tech problems usually pop up. If someone can't hear me or I can't hear them, this is where it's going to get in, where we're going to get into that. So I'll check to make sure they're in Discord. They have the right role. We have a pupper role for our Discord channel, and a doggo role as well. So you have to have that role in order to be in the right voice channel. I'll make sure that they can hear me and that I can hear them. I will let them know that they don't have to have their camera on because it won't be going into the stream and I won't be able to see it. But they're more than happy to. It also sucks up bandwidth, but you can do it if you want. And then I make sure that they know that I am streaming what is on the screen to them via Discord. They don't actually have to watch Twitch. There's a bit of a delay on Twitch. And so the fact that I can stream this straight to them in Discord is extremely handy. So I make sure everybody's in that. Then I make sure that they're in D&D Beyond. And at this point, I'm making sure that they have a name picked out for the character they've chosen. All of the characters that I use for this particular one-shot are pre-generated characters that were in the Rules Companion that the company Animal Adventures made for Dungeons and Doggies. And Tech Soup, who is one of my moderators, created all of the pre-generated characters in D&D Beyond. He gifted them to me because he's a delight, and then I just make copies of them for every session. And that means that the players can actually keep their characters, and because this rule set has been added to the supplemental area in D&D Beyond, you can actually build doggos all on your onesies, and you can actually use these characters as balanced characters for any campaign. So that's kind of fun. We really appreciate that TechSoup did that. He continues to help me maintain those. He's a really good moderator because he knows everything. And so if I'm ever confused about something or I have a question, he's very polite and gives me any of the answers that I need. I'm not asking for the internet to give me answers about stuff. I'm sure the internet is very nice, but Tech and I have set up an agreement where if I need help, he will give it to me, and that is an agreement we have made. He's not pushing the information on me. He's not volunteering it when I didn't ask for it. We always have that agreement set up so that we both feel comfortable on either side. I also worry about taking advantage of him because he knows everything and I don't, and I worry that I'm constantly like, hey TechSoup, hey TechSoup, hey TechSoup, hey TechSoup, but he's assured me that I don't, hopefully. So, D&D Beyond, they've picked their character. The pre-generated characters have names, but I like to let people pick their own names so that it's fun. I then add those names to my Streamlabs. You can see here I'm actually using a Dungeons and Doggos template that I use when I stream. You can see each of the tokens. I make sure those match with each of the characters that are being played, and then I make sure each of the names match with each of the characters that are being played, and then those black boxes you see under each of the tokens are where their web captions would be, where you can see my web captions that are next to my pretty face. I'm used to pausing and being like, hey, does that make sense? And does anyone have any questions? But I don't have anyone in this stream with me, just my lovely chat viewers. And there's a weird delay, so I'm going to vamp for a minute. Maybe one of you will ask a question. But really, you should just ask questions in the chat. And then when I get to one of those weird breathy, pause, questiony spots, I'll look over and see it and be like, aha, a question, and I'll answer it. So ask me questions. Okay. So I check on their characters. As I'm making sure that their tokens match in Streamlabs with their pre-generated characters, I'm also making sure that I've got the right tokens in Arkenforge. So Arkenforge is the is the program that I use to run the game map-wise. And so I have a starting area, which is a quarantine room that I built because when quarantine happened, the Arkenforge folks spit out a quarantine pack with toilet paper rolls and packages of toilet paper and face masks and sanitizing lotion and soap. And I was like, well, that's hysterical. And so I built a quarantine room. It's fun. It's got comfy couches from Devon Rue and bookshelves and plants and a giant sanitizer bottle. It's a delight. So my players start there and then they move through the maps that have been built for the module. And I stream all of that using this template. Normally, where you see the character sheet now, which we'll get to in a bit, that's normally where the map is, and that's what they see in Discord. So I'm making sure that all the tokens that are going to be on that map match the player tokens, and that the maps have been reset because I reuse the maps, and so sometimes the dastardly villains aren't in the right positions because I spam the save button too much, and it saves the tokens in the wrong spots. The wrong starting spots. I'm also checking in Streamlabs again that I already went over that. I have notes. I wrote this all down so I don't forget anything. I also make sure that my players know that while I am streaming the maps and this template to them in Discord, if it's a live game, I make sure they know that I'm also streaming it to the internet. And I think this is key, especially since I'm playing with a lot of these players just the once, and a lot of them for brand new, is even if you've made it really clear when you're recruiting people to play with you that it's going to be live or not, when before you go live, I like to get that consent again. So I tell people, we're streaming live to Twitch. Here's my handle. Give it to your friends. I should probably do that ahead of time. That would be smart. I'm going to write that down. Handle 2 players ahead of time. I'm not good at this, guys. Okay, so I tell them it's going to go live to Twitch. I also tell them that it's being recorded using Twitch, and that I export it from Twitch and save it into YouTube. And again, I think it's really important to get consent, and this is around where I get it when I'm going through all the tech stuff. Then what I do is I jump into what I call my D&D Beyond orientation. Game to Grow has 1 or 2 webinars, or will have 1 or 2 webinars on D&D Beyond, and I encourage you to watch those. I don't know how to watch them, so reach out afterward and I'll try and connect you. I just know they're happening at some point. And so I am not going to orient you in D&D Beyond today. I'm going to show you how I orient my brand new players, or at least brand new to me, because figuring out how to use D&D Beyond, if you really wanted to step through the entire thing, would take a really long time. And I try to make my orientation last about 30 minutes with questions. So I only use small portions of I only orient around small portions of D&D Beyond. So this is what that looks like. I say, okay, is everybody in D&D Beyond with their character sheet? Then I make sure that they're using PC, mobile, or a PDF that I've sent them, because it looks different from PC to mobile. And it looks way different in PDF because the PDF is usually the old school character version. Then what I do is I make sure I have all of those pulled up as examples for me, so that when I'm walking through the rest of the sheet, I can be like, okay, so for those of you that are using PC, it's here. For those of you on mobile, it's here. For those of you using old school character sheets, it's here. To make my life easier, if everybody were using the same thing, it would be great. And so we're pretending my life is easy and everybody's using PC for this orientation. So I'll say, okay, folks, the top left-hand corner of your screen, you've got a little token and it's adorable and it matches your token here in the template. It also has your name, which is a great name, by the way. And you should note that you are all starting at level 3, and that is because level 1 characters are kind of boring, or can be, and most one-shots will have you either at 3 or 5, level 3 or 5, because that's where the interesting stuff comes into play. Now, I'm going to jump into a bunch of numbers. I don't like numbers. Most people don't like numbers, and it's going to sound like a lot. And I want you to know that you don't have to remember this. I'm just showing it to you so you can know that you can ask questions later and that I should be able to answer them, and that is great. And it's just to give you an idea of where to look for things. That being said, here we go. Ready? All right, here we go. So there are 3 modifiers that you're going to care a lot about, and they're ability modifiers, saving throw modifiers, and skill modifiers. The ability throw modifiers are at the top of your page, and they are arranged from left to right, and they're right underneath where your character name is. And you care about the numbers specifically under STR, DEX, CON, INT, etc. that have pluses or minuses in front of them. And an example of when you might want to look for that number is if I say, hey, Hartley, can you roll me a dex check? And Hartley will go, yeah, I will. I'm going to roll a d20 or 20-sided die, and I will add 3. And you'll give me that number, and I'll decide what to do next. I also might ask you for a saving throw. The saving throw is going to be in a box underneath that left to right numbers, and it says saving throw at the bottom. For some reason, all the boxes in D&D Beyond are labeled mostly at the bottom of them, which is annoying in my mind. But let's say I ask Hartley for a Constitution saving throw. Hartley will go, sure, and roll a d20 or 20-sided die and add 3. And usually I say, hey, you guys see where that is? Like, as I'm describing this, like, make sure you're finding it. Everybody, can you see your dex modifier? Can you see your con modifier? Make sure I try and make sure everybody's, like, following along. Is everybody following along at home? Then I say, all right, next we're jumping into skills. Skills is going to be the long, skinny box in the middle. Thankfully, the skills are in alphabetical order, or I would never find anything. There's a bunch of skills. The ones you're going to care the most about today are perception and investigation, because those are the ones I'm going to ask you for a bunch. Now, feel free to use all your skills. Use whatever you want. However, I'm mostly going to ask you for investigation and perception. So let's go ahead and find those on our sheet today. TechSoup has commented that it would be nice if you could color code individual boxes in D&D Beyond, and that is a really good point. It would be hard to make that colorblind accessible, and I've seen some character sheets that do things with shapes too. That's an interesting thought, though. I would be interested to talk more about that. So skills, perception, and investigation. Then we do a hop over into the biggest box on this page, which hugs the right side of the page and has actions, spells, equipment, and features and traits in the top of it. Let me look at my notes real quick. Right. I'm jumping over here to show you that when you're in combat, you're gonna start with your actions tab. That's gonna tell you the kind of actions you can take during combat. So if you're Hartley and you want to hit the dastardly villain with your short sword, you'll see short sword, and so you'll roll what? What will you roll? Yes, a d20 or a 20-sided die, and you will add +5 because D&D Beyond has done all the math for you. Because math is hard. I don't like doing it. D&D Beyond does it for me as much as it can. So you roll a d20, you add 5, you tell me what that number is. I take that number and I compare it to my Dastardly Villain's AC or armor class. And if what you roll is higher than my Dastardly Villain's AC, then I ask you to roll damage. You can see that right next to the +5 where it says damage underneath it. For a short sword, it's 1d6 plus 3. That means you're going to roll one 6-sided die, and you're going to add 3 to it because D&D Beyond says so. It has done the math for you. Thank you, D&D Beyond. Not sponsored by D&D Beyond. So, you tell me what the damage is, and I subtract that from my hit points. We're going to go on a tangent here for a second. I have mentioned 2 things, armor class and hit points. We're going to go find those on our sheets. So above the box that we're in is a shield shape with a number in it labeled armor class. So Hartley's is 17. So that's going to be a really important number for Hartley to know when I say, hey, Hartley, the dastardly villain is going to try and hit you. Does an 18 hit? And Hartley will be like, yes, my armor class is a 17. 18 is higher than 17, so yes, it hits. And I go, neat. And I roll my damage, and I say, you are going to subtract 5 damage. And Hartley goes, cool. And they do a hop, skip, and a jump. Over in the top right-hand corner is a big box labeled hit points, current 25, max 25. Hartley's going to add or put the number 5 into the text box that you see to the left of current 25 hit points. And there's a heal button and a damage button above and below. So you'll put 5 in the text box, you'll select the damage button, and D&D Beyond will do the math for you, which is really nice of them. Now let's say there's a cleric in the party and the cleric's like, oh no, Hartley has been hit. I would like to heal Hartley. So they use a heal spell and they say, Hartley, I have healed you for 8 hit points. Hartley's going to use the same box and put a number 8 in that text box, but this time they will select the heal button. And again, D&D Beyond does the math for you, tells you how many hit points you have. It's real handy. Now, some of the pre-generated characters have spells instead of weapons, or I should say in addition to weapons. Hartley here is mostly a weapons doggo. What I'll do is usually use the cleric wanting to heal as like and speaking of spells, I want to make sure I call out spells because some of your spells are listed under actions, but not all of them. And the spellcasters can, I've played with a spellcaster who didn't realize that tab was there and didn't get to use some of their spells. So spells tab, click it. You click it, you see a bunch of different kinds of spells, and I say, spells work very similar to weapons. Sometimes they work a little bit different. I've talked enough about mechanics. We'll get into it when you want to hit something with one of your spells. So during the game, you tell me what you want to do. We'll consult your sheet, and we'll do what it says. It's pretty much as easy as that. We've been talking about combat a lot, so I make sure to say that when we do combat, we use an initiative score to order people in descending. Normally I get to pause and ask for questions when I need to, because I've been talking for too long. So I'm just going to pause and drink this water for a second. So I've been talking about combat a lot, and you might be wondering, what's combat? And I'm going to say, combat is when you want to hit stuff. And before you hit stuff, I'm going to say, please roll initiative. And you're going to roll, a d20. And you're going to add your initiative modifier. Your initiative modifier number lives next to your armor class in another little box titled initiative. You should see it right there. Everybody see your initiative? Hooray! You all see your initiative. And then I say, combat, there are 3 basic actions you can do: move, action, and bonus action. And you can do them in any order, which means yes, you can do your action before you move. You can do your bonus action before your action. It's just the way it is. Some of you don't have bonus actions, and that's fine. When we get into combat, we can talk about this some more. Everything you really need to know mechanically to play today is on this sheet. For extra fun, I'd like you to look at your equipment because I have, TechSoup added magical items to each of the doggos, which is not typically a one-shot thing, but I asked him to because I think the Magical items are just adorable. They're from the Dungeons and Doggies rule set, and I think they're adorable. So each doggo has one. So I encourage people to look at that tab and the features and traits tab for fun, more information. But really, everything I've told you so far is all you really need to play the game today. There's like a bunch more, but that's all you need to know today. Whew, everybody got that? Any questions or concerns? All right, then I jump into house rules. Often when I'm setting up the game or people are introducing themselves or we're just chatting, I hear a lot of like, I don't know if I'm going to do this right. I don't have a lot of experience with this, or I'm sure I'm going to do it wrong. And I think it's hard to play D&D wrong. I think the only real requirements for playing D&D right is that everyone's having fun. And a key component there is that everyone's having fun. A lot of that comes down to everybody not being a dick, including your GM. My GM style is not to murder all of my players. Now, that is a completely valid way to play D&D. There are GMs that do want to play combatively with their players. The players will try and beat the GM will try and murder all of their players. I'm not here to tell you that that's the wrong way. If you've got a group set up and those are the expectations you all have set, fantastic. When I run this one shot, that's not the game I'm playing. I am playing a collaborative storytelling game. And I make that clear to my players before we get started. I also use a bunch... thanks, Coyote Lovely, for following me. I also use a bunch of what I affectionately call hand-wavy bullshit, which means I read the rules as written, and I know the rules as intended, but sometimes I have a question that I don't know the answer to, or somebody suggests something that just sounds really cool, and I say, yeah, let's do that. That's my prerogative as a GM, and it is only done with the consent of my players. There have been times where a player's like, oh my god, you know what would be cool is this. And I always make sure that I step in and I say, okay, so you have picked up another doggo in your mouth and are lifting them up off the ground and waving them around to try and give them a better vantage. Does the doggo that you've picked up in your mouth, are you okay with that? And if the doggo that's been picked up in the mouth is like, no, I say, cool. So that's a really neat idea you had, first doggo. Second doggo's like, no, I don't want that, so let's do something different. Or if the doggo that's being picked up that is like, yeah, I'm totally into that, then I'm like, great, let's do it. And that's a good example of how you can get consent in a not annoying way. Rule of cool is absolutely a thing. And it actually says in the Dungeon Master's manual thingy that the rules are technically guidelines. So fun is absolutely what comes first. But yeah, hand wavy bullshit is totally my thing. I like doing it a lot. I'm glad that you've adopted it. Feel free. Anybody can use it. It's not copyrighted. And I'm glad that your players are loving it. I also think it's important to point out to my players that I am a storyteller, I'm a writer, and I love to describe stuff. That's not everybody's jam, and that's okay. You don't have to be super into storytelling. You don't have to be super into describing things. Frankly, you could just be having kind of a bad day. And so I like to make sure that my players know that that is not only okay, I want you to feel comfortable with that. And so the example I use for this is, let's say you want to hit the dastardly villain. And I'm going to say, great, we do all the numbery things. And then I say, all right, what's it look like when you hit the dastardly villain? And my player can say, I hit the dastardly villain with my sword. And I go, neat, and we move on. The player might be like, the wind rushes through my fur as I seek the blood of the dastardly villain. And I say, awesome, and we move on. Or I might say, I imagine that when you're hitting the dastardly villain, it kind of looks like this, or maybe it looks like this, or maybe it looks like this. And that allows my player to be like, oh yeah, it totally looks like that. Or it allows my player to be like, no, I think it looks more like this. Or it allows my player to be like, thank you, and we move on. Just giving them options and getting their consent on what it looks like is really important, and I highly encourage you guys to do it. It can feel awkward when you first start doing it, but I swear practice makes perfect, and if you want to talk more about good solutions for that, please let me know. I have lots of people you can talk to, and I'm willing to talk to you about it as well. But I think it's important. Along those lines, something that's very important is setting up a safe space, and so I make it very clear in my orientation with my players that if at any point they become uncomfortable, the way that we like to handle it, because I like to handle it, is by saying, hey, I need to pause. And then what I do is I pause the stream by saying, hey, stream, we're having technical difficulties. Or I say, hey, stream, I need a break. Or I say something along those lines. I pause the stream, I mute all the microphones, and I ask that player to jump with me into a tech channel where they can do one of two things. They can either tell me, hey, I cannot do this right now and I need to bounce, at which point I say, I understand. Is there anything I can do to help? And I want to make sure that you're safe and comfortable. And sometimes they don't reply, and that's okay, because if that's what you need, that's what you need. Know that I want you to have what you need, but I will continue to worry about you because I care about you as a player if I've added you to one of my games. And that is just the way it is. But if you need to bounce, you need to bounce. That's completely fine. Another thing that I would really, really like is if you're like, hey, this is what's bothering me, and then I can fix it. I have always been able to fix it. I've had people do this. This is a proven concept. They've done it at my table. They've done it in my streams. We've fixed it and we've moved on. It's doable. You can do it. All you have to do is listen. You listen to what your player says. You should be able to ask questions to make sure you're clarifying things, but not to challenge them and not to judge them, just to clarify, just so that you can find the right solution together. I think that that's really important too. And it's a hard space to set up. I can do that with my long-term sessions, right? I've built that trust with those players largely, but when you're doing it with random humans on the internet, I think it's about follow through, and I think doing the consent pieces as you're playing gives that follow through. I don't know. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. I didn't go to school for this. I don't really know, but it's worked for me so far. Oh, hi, John the Blacksmith. My friends and I call that role-playing versus role-playing. Both are valid. I prefer role-playing, but know folks that just want to roll dice and hit stuff without the text. Yeah, that's very true. You can absolutely roll dice and hit stuff without the text. You don't need that at all. You can also role-play. You can do whatever you want. It's whatever makes it fun for you. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, so I make sure my players know that if they get uncomfortable at all, we'll do whatever we need to do to make them comfortable and to fix it. Then I jump into a house rule that I use. I use brutal criticals for two reasons. One, back when I started running my home games, I really did think it was the best option. I did a bunch of research. I confused myself for a little while because that's how my brain works. And I decided this is what I'm going to do. And now I don't actually remember the real way to do it. So when I play my modules, I ask my players if we can use brutal criticals so that I don't have to look at the book. So far, they've all said, yes, let's do that. Thank goodness. A brutal critical is on a nat 20, or for the fighter, a natural 19. A nat 20 attack, you can add, what you end up doing is you add one max damage die to your usual rolled damage die plus the damage modifier. I like to instead of rolling, just rolling 2 damage die as opposed to the 1. Sorry, let me say that a different way. I like to, instead of just doubling your damage roll, I like having the max damage on one of the die pool, so that you're guaranteeing that you're not rolling 2 1s. Yeah, TechSoup, nothing sucks more than rolling 2 1s on a nat 20. I really want to, I feel like the brutal critical and doing the match damage die just makes that, it feels right. It's more fun for me. I also make sure they know that it applies to both parties. The non-player characters, or my dastardly villains, are able to do this on nat 20s as well. But I like to get my players' consent. If anybody's like, no, I hate it, then we find a different solution. I have 2 moderators. I've talked about TechSoup a bunch so far. I've also obliquely referenced Not Luthera, who is my husband, whom I love very dearly, and the only reason I am coming to you live today is because that man keeps me alive, and he keeps all of my tech running well. So, when I'm streaming, at least one of them is usually in one of my channels to moderate, because I don't like trolls and I don't handle them very well. And thank God I haven't had any so far, but those are a thing. They're allowed to exist too, and I don't have to put up with them. And they're also there to help me if any of my tech stuff goes wrong, because it does so often. And tech is there so that when I'm like, hey, I have a question, I don't have to type it all the way out. I just have to be like, gosh, I don't know the answer to that. And he, because of an agreement that we have made ahead of time, will text me the answer, which is super nice. And sometimes he doesn't get me the answer before I make a call, and I've made a call and we move on. And he knows that I'm not doing it because I don't care about the information he's given me. It's just, I've just made that call, and sometimes he gets it to me in time where it does affect the call I make. Sometimes he gets it to me in time and I decide to make a different call anyway. I think of him as, rules lawyers have a bad rap. He's not a rules lawyer in that way. He's just a rules lawyer, and like he knows all the answers. He's a walking book, and I love it. He's so good at the table. He's so polite. He always waits for us to ask. He's really nice about it. Rules scholar. That's what it was. I was trying to remember what we decided to call him. He's our rules scholar. He's the best. I'll take this moment to say I do run these games not streamed. The last 3 games I've run have not been streamed. You should make a shirt, Tech Soup. When I run them not streamed, Tech and Luth will sometimes jump into the voice channel. Sometimes I need support, and sometimes that support looks like not Luthera sitting in the stream and just being quiet. I tell my players this so they don't think someone's lurking and it makes them uncomfortable. I think it's important that you do that. Yeah. I would wear that shirt, Tech Soup. I want it to say Tech Soup is my rules scholar. Can that be what it says? One of my players the other day referenced making a shirt for me, and I've been thinking about it a little bit too much, because it made me feel very silly, but like in a loved way. And I have thought about, I have a nonprofit I call Spoon Conservatory, and I really want to make shirts because I really like the logo for it. And it's a Spoon Conservatory, and then somewhere on it I want it to say, I have opinions, because I do. My other rules lawyer is Tech Soup. That's a good one. Anyway, I think it's important to check in, to have moderators. That can be very useful. You can absolutely do this without them, and I have, but it's useful to have them. If you're going to have them, tell your players. You don't want to startle your players. Then I tell my players that they are playing doggos. They are not playing anthropomorphic dogs. They're playing dogs, real dogs that walk around on the ground, that happen to have humanoid intelligence. I say, you can go into in-depth detail about how your dog talks or how your dog pulls back on the longbow, or you can just talk and you can just say, my dog shoots a longbow. You can go as deep down that rabbit hole as you want. I will go with you. I love that kind of stuff, but it isn't necessary, except that you're not standing on 2 feet. For some reason in my head, that just doesn't work. Everybody agrees to this, of course. Then before we go live, I tell my players I'm going to do 2 things when we go live. I'm going to say, hi, stream, and then I'm going to tell them a bunch of stuff, which I'll get to in a minute with you guys, with this stream. So I tell my players, I'm going to go into all the tech that we use, because I think it's a polite thing to do. And it helps people be like, I want to do that. I'll look into those things. And in fact, I believe I have somebody watching today who I've talked their ear off about Arkenforge, and they did start using it, and they were like, I hate this about it. And I'm like, yeah, but maybe try this about it. And they're like, oh, well, okay. And they dug into it, and they're kind of using it now, which was really nice. Yeah, so I'll tell my players, hey, I'm going to start the stream by saying we use this tech, and then I'm going to ask you to describe your doggo. I tell them that we're going to use their doggo names because it makes it easier for the stream to follow. And it makes it easier for me to remember, because everyone has a billion names, right? Like, Not Luthera is his online handle, but his name is Aaron. He's my husband, so I know his real name. He's got a character named Idris, a character named Quentin, a character named Briar, a character named Marius. Do you see where I'm going with this? So we refer to doggo names. It just helps me out. So I tell them that. They'll agree to it. I tell them you can either describe your dog or not. You can be like, I'm playing a French Bulldog, or you can be like, my French Bulldog has these big ass ears and they move in different directions and their fur is the softest, like dark gray, and they've got a really shiny collar and they've got a vest with all of these You can do whatever you want. It's the same as when you're describing how you hit something. You can either be super detailed or not. Oh, I forgot Grang. Right, Grang. Yep, Luth also has a character named Grang. So again, detailed or not. Then I say, do you need to go to the bathroom? If you do, go now. We will do a break halfway through. Then I say, do you have your liquid of choice? Because I think it's important to have liquids. And I say liquid of choice because I am not judging. I'd rather you not get super drunk while we play, unless we do a drunk Dungeons and Doggos. Oh my God, we have to do a drunk Dungeons and Doggos. Who's in? Right? Dungeons and Doggos. We have to do a drunk Dungeons and Doggos. Yeah. But, okay, liquid of choice. Sorry, back to my script. Liquid of choice is important. Hydration is important. We're going to be sitting together for 4 hours, so have a friggin' liquid. And I do encourage a break every 2 hours. Lots of us have puppies. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, so if I sit still for too long, it hurts. Just take a break. Everybody needs a break. I can give you a laundry list of reasons if you want, and in fact, I will do a Twitter post on reasons you should take a break, but just trust me. Take breaks. So liquid of choice. I also ask if people have dice, because I definitely got into a campaign or a session once where someone was like, I don't have dice. And I was like, did you know that you can ask Siri, hey Siri, roll a d20.
Rolling. It's 14.
Isn't that neat? So you don't really have to have dice. You just have to own an iPhone, apparently. There are also apps that roll dice, which are really handy. I will say that if you roll dice with Siri, you can't ask her to roll multiple dice. So you can't say, hey Siri, roll 4d6. Hey Siri, roll 4d6. She said, I didn't get that. Could you try again? Sometimes she says, I rolled a 3, which is not something, it's not a number you can get on 4d6. So don't trust it for that. Yeah, so ask about dice, and then ask if they have access to their character sheet. Sometimes I have players that are having trouble with their internet, so as long as they can keep Discord up and running and have audio going, they don't even need to see the map because I describe it, and I can send them their character sheet and they can access it offline. So make sure they've got dice in their character sheet. I usually choose that moment to say something about the dumb amounts of dice I have. Is this a vault I can show the internet? No. Is this a vault I can show the internet? Yeah. So I have a dumb number of dice. This is just one of my master vaults. I'm a giant dork. Love my dice. I buy them from Level Up Dice. They're really good dice. Dice by PCalc in the App Store is very cool and use a scene kit. That's good to know. I'll check that one out. The one that I usually recommend is Ready to Roll. But they recently updated their UI and I find it a little hard to navigate. I really like it because it's good for blind D&D players because it reads the numbers out. But yeah, so everybody check that one out, I guess. I know John the Blacksmith and I trust that dude. So that one's a good one. So dice character sheet. And then I say, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to launch into the stream. Everybody ready. Always make sure everybody's ready and always make sure everybody's done telling that story they don't want on the internet. And then I push the go live button. And then I say, hi stream. Thank you for joining us today. We are in session of Dungeons and Doggos. We will be running Raiders of the Last Bork today. Or someday I will script out Who Will Let the Dogs Out and Layers of the Necro Meowser. Or any other one shot that you win. I announce the name of it. And then I say, today we will be using a couple pieces of tech, which I'm going to tell you about now. One of them is Discord. That's how my players and I are talking and how they are seeing the player map. Speaking of player map, we use Arkenforge. Arkenforge is a very nice app that I really like using, but its UI is a little tricky and they are working on it, I promise. We are also using Streamlabs OBS to collect all of this into this nice little template that my husband helped me build. That streams into Twitch, which we're also using today because you're watching it there. Thank you for joining us. And I use GoodNotes for the PDFs and session notes on my iPad. We are also using webcaptioner.com today to get our web captions, and I do a little ditty about web captions. And we're using D&D Beyond for our character sheets. Then I mentioned that I am a Diceomancer, which you can find the link to the backup. Level Up Dice is a very good dice company. I really appreciate their dice because they're very pretty to look at, and you can actually use them. Even though they're very pretty, they're both pretty and useful, which means that they're balanced correctly in order to play at my table, at least. I buy so many of their dice, and I'm so excited about so many of their dice. They've made me a Diceomancer, so you can follow the link below this stream to get to their website through my link, and it gives me experience points, and that's just fun for me, basically. I like to say that instead of a dice goblin or a dice dragon, I am a Diceomancer, which means I literally have the skills to change the world with my dice. That's how cool I am. And then I say, all right, I'm going to ask my players to introduce their doggo characters. Let's start with Badger. And then somebody jumps in and starts describing their doggo character. And then I jump into the module. Oh, I forgot. I usually mention that as well, that we are using a module, backup. So when I say that we're running Raiders of the Last Bork, I say technically the title is Raiders of the Last Bark. It was written by Animal Adventures as part of their Dungeons and Doggies rule set. They released it at the beginning of the quarantine. It's very easy to play. It's all in one spot. All of the tokens are there. All of the maps are there. It's super easy to run. They also have 2 other modules, which again, they're more traditional modules where like all the information is there and you do what you want with it. For me, I like to script things out. I script my homebrew out, and I usually write scripts for all of my modules. It just makes it easier for me to run them. I do improvise like mad. I'm terrible at running modules verbatim. But again, having that structure is important for me. And then I run the stream. I do all the things that I said I would do. I can make that claim because I've had people tell me I do it. So I do all the things I said I do, like making a safe space and making room for consent and making sure people are having fun. And I have a really good time. And now I'm going to look for questions in my chat. John the Blacksmith has said, I've used Dice Roller AR. It's okay. Not many features. More of a that's kind of neat app that I once used during a game. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, a lot of the AR stuff at the moment is that's kind of neat. I'm sure it's going to be more applicable in the future. That seems to be a road that we're walking down as a globe. I think it's going to be really useful. I think we are seeing a lot of the applications of it nowadays too because of this whole quarantine and trapped in our houses stuff. So I really like the idea of AR in games. There's a game called Dragoons that uses AR on some of their cards. So you like use your phone to scan the card and it recognizes the card and then like a dragon pops up and roars and it's really cute. So AR is fun. And then John the Blacksmith says, I miss the tech you're using for voice chat. Are you using Discord at the same time that you stream to Twitch? Yes, I am. Does OBS handle the different players' voice streams? Okay. Yes, so let me get into that a little bit. I have a voice channel in Discord that I use called the Bork channel for this particular game. In all of my D&D games, they each have their distinct voice channels that just those characters are able to access on my server. So we don't get random humans jumping into our voice channel. You know what I'll do? Hey, Luth and Tech, you're both in the Doggos channel. Do you mind if I jump in there in Discord to demonstrate how it works? Is that okay? I actually don't know how they'll say yes to me. Just shoot me a text, gentlemen. So if they give permission, I'll jump in there so you can hear it. Discord collects all the voices. Streamlabs has a source that you add in the mixer that is... Yep, they're both fine with it, so I'll jump in a second. So in Streamlabs OBS, you add the Discord audio into the mixer as a source, and then you can mix it from there. So technically it's just the one audio channel, but it works pretty well. So I'll show you now. Okay. Hello, gentlemen.
Hey. Oh, hey.
So that's Luth and Tech. You can hear both of them. You can hear that they both sound pretty decent. One of the things that I
don't know that you can hear us on stream. Are we muted on that?
I unmuted you.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, there you go.
Low, though.
He's making that he's making that comment because you would not believe how often I accidentally mute these guys. Luth, did you say that you're really low?
Yeah. Crank that input up to where we put yours.
Well, should I do the gain stuff there?
We can do that later if you want. Or you
Okay.
can do it now. It doesn't matter.
Thanks, John the Blacksmith. Yeah, we messed with the audio, so I forgot to mention, or I forgot to adjust that later. So
I think we're good enough for now.
you're good now? Okay.
Yeah, probably fine for the time being.
Yeah. So, John, did that answer your question? Discord collects all the voices, and Streamlabs uses that audio output and pipes it up through Twitch.
And if you want to mix the people individually, you can mix Discord even just when you're in the chat, and that would then relay over into, it would affect Streamlabs as well.
Hang on. So are you saying that when I adjust what I hear in my headphones as your volume, that reflects in Discord?
I believe so.
Sorry. That reflects in Streamlabs and Twitch?
I know what you meant. Yeah, I believe so.
Oh. Interesting. I didn't think it reflected over. I thought it all stayed the same because I've turned people down because I have sensory days where like
Yeah.
I have to turn everybody's microphones down.
Mm-hmm.
John says, yeah, I think so. I've not used Streamlabs before, so we'll need to look into that. Specifically, I'm using Streamlabs OBS, which is built, so it's OBS is a, as I understand it, is a program, and it works pretty well. I like the UI and the bits inside of Streamlabs OBS better. Happy to chat with you more about that if you'd like. This is all the content I had for today's stream. Happy to answer more questions either here on stream or via messaging. DJs you follow have been using it too. Yeah, it's neat. You can set up a bunch of templates. So I have a bunch of templates set up for different games. So this is my Doggos game, but I have a different template set up for Shift D&D, which I run on Mondays, and Treasure Tuesday D&D, which I run on Tuesdays. And when I play video games, I have a different template there. So that's kind of nice because I just have to like choose the template and it pipes everything where it needs to go. So like Tech and Luth are in most of, I think we play in all of the same games. They don't always play in the Doggo games, but so each of their inputs are saved in a way that I can just dump them into a new template, so I don't have to set everything up every time. And you can transition between slides, so I can be like, hey, we'll be right back, and I'll throw up I won't end the stream, I'll just throw up a template that says be right back. Most of my streams start with a template that says starting soon. It's very cool. You can add moderator stuff in it, right, Luth?
What do you mean?
Like-
yeah. Well, yeah, you could. So Streamlabs does a lot of cloud-based stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the nice thing about having the Streamlabs OBS is instead of having to go to the website and do your moderation there, you can do it right inside the streaming app as well.
Right, yeah,
It's the same company.
right.
They're built on OBS, which is open source, and then they kind of expand.
Yeah, so I really like it. I think it works really well. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to export this into YouTube so you guys can watch it later if you'd like. Thank you so much for joining me today. I think you're all great. I would not have been able to get to where I am without all of my delightful players, and I mean that very sincerely. And I love that all of you play with me because this is the only thing that's distracting me from the fact that the world is burning, is running Dungeons & Dragons and thinking about Dungeons & Dragons and onboarding new players into my Dungeons & Dragons games, which I'm about to go do, and just playing Dungeons & Dragons. I really appreciate all of you. And if any of you have any suggestions, I'm more than open to those. Please ping me on Twitter at Like7Spoon. John says they are moving their game sessions online. Yep, because you put your sessions on hold for quarantine. Yeah, I think we've talked about that, and I know that that's difficult. And TechSoup went through the whole thing too. Actually, you were the two that I refer to, and I'm like, I know a guy that prefers to have it physical, like on the table with like all the little pieces. You're the two that I'm referring to. You guys should talk. It can be tough, but it can be done. I have run a campaign digitally since its inception, and the other campaign that I ran physically since its inception, we moved online. It was tough. It's doable. You don't have to do it this way. This is one way to do it. It's the way I can tell you how to do because it's how I did it. But there's many other ways to do it, and lots of people are streaming about how to set up streams right now. Now is a good time to be playing D&D online. There's a lot of help out there. Yeah, Tech does it a completely different way. John says, I figured out today how to take the STLs for minis and make them into some basic tokens. Nice. Oh, Tyler just joined us. Sorry about that, Tyler. It is recorded. I will send you a link to the YouTube recording later. And Tyler, you can always ask me questions. You know that. Thanks for joining us, though. John, being able to take the STLs and make them into minis is very cool. I think Tech is looking into that right now. Maybe I am speaking for Tech. I don't know. Luth and Tech do all that for me. Yeah. He is doing that.
There was a minute when he may be AFK, but he used Inkscape the first session we did online for his campaign, and I actually took our Hero Forge STLs and just slapped like a solid color on them, and then took basically a screenshot at an angle that would make it work with the map, and we just used that. He's been using Tailspire, and they haven't opened up their custom imports yet, but when they do, I'll have to model fresh ones because of licensing and stuff, and it syncs to their server. But yeah, that's super exciting.
That is very exciting.
Blender's great for that.
Yeah. I don't know anything about 3D modeling. You will have to go to Not Luthera's stream for that. He streams about 3D modeling and 3D painting. I know nothing about color. I don't know anything about that. All I know is that I say, babe, I need a door, a magic door that's painted in a weird way. Can you do? And he does it for me. Or I say, babe, I need this character printed. And I don't always whine. I usually ask very politely and make sure it works in his schedule.
It doesn't work when you whine like that, but usually it does.
But he makes them for me, but you talk to him about that. I know nothing.
Yeah. Oh, so what I did with that, John, is I took the STL into Blender, and then worked with it in that. But yeah, you're right. You can take the the ping from there and use that as tokens as well. They have a token system coming out very soon as well, which will be great.
Yeah, that's part of the whole color thing that's coming out. That beta is starting soon-ish, I think.
Yay!
It's supposed to be very cool. I've seen some shots from it. It looks very neat.
Yeah, we backed it. Both Tech and I backed it, so we'll have more insight on that as soon as it starts working. We got our codes, but they haven't launched it yet.
Yep. So I'm realizing how late I am for another appointment, so I'm going to run away. If you all have questions, please ping me at like 7spoon, all spelled out. The number is all spelled out on Twitter. Can you message through Twitch? You can also message me through Twitch. Yeah. And everybody that's streaming right now, I believe, knows me in real life, so you know how to get a hold of me. Have a wonderful day, everybody. I think you're all neat, and I'll talk to you later. Okay? Thanks. Bye, stream.